These are the Japanese color palettes by Boku Undo. I'm going to swatch them for you, share my impressions of them, and give you a little demo using them as well. First, let's swatch the palette which has the blue label. All the colors are listed on the package as reddish black, yellowish black, greenish black, bluish black, purplish black, and brownish black. There are 6 pans in each palette. The color codes start at E03 and end at E08. When I was swatching these, I'm looking and I think I used a bit too much water. Oops, but anyways, so here's a closer look at the first 6 colors. Awesome. I love each and every one of these colors. I have the Amazon links for these listed in my description box, as well as Aliexpress. If you do order them, the way to tell them apart, again, as mentioned, the first one has a blue label, which, so you know, the big characters on this label, when translated into English, it just says Sumi Inks. Underneath, it says, "A new world of colors created based on ink." Thank you to my Japanese friend for translating. Also, on the back in English, it says shadow black with the number 15452. So the second palette, which has sort of a red-esque label, the characters when translated into English say Sumi Inks with a bit of brightness. Underneath, it says the world of Sumi colors that harmonizes elegant brightness and saturation using ink. The back says Shadow Black May and the code is 15459. All right, so swatching the second palette, we have the colors Shadow Pink, Shadow Yellow, Shadow Green, Shadow Blue, Shadow Purple, and Shadow Vermilion. You can see that the numbers go from E09 to the code E14. These seem a little bit brighter than the first palette. I would say equally beautiful. I'm glad I have both of these palettes. It's almost surprising considering how dark they appear in the pans. I love them though because they're so moody, so unique. You can see they're a little bit more opaque than a more translucent watercolor. I would also say they're very comparable but aren't quite as intense as my liquid black Sumi ink, which I really love. You can see I probably used a bit too much water on my original swatches earlier. Honestly, COVID brain. But you get an idea of the intensity that you can achieve. The Boku Undo, they dried much faster as well than my liquid ink, and they dried really nice and matte. All right, so let's do a little demo with these inks, and I'm gonna paint this little bird. So sometimes these are referred to as Japanese watercolor. Are they actually watercolor? Well, I think we can totally use them in a very similar watercolor way. Just good to keep in mind that because they are an ink, they're going to act differently. So I just want you to be prepared if you do decide to buy them. What's the difference? Well, generally speaking, ink, it's more of a stain, and watercolor, it's more, suspended pigment. Production is different, ingredients are different. Watercolor is definitely more translucent and the ink is more opaque. So honestly, somebody with a watercolor background, they might find these really fun to try or really frustrating. I find these inks, they're really easily reactivated when you wet them again on the paper. So be careful, and they can quickly go muddy. Maybe the inks are maybe a little less forgiving in my opinion, but on the other hand, I personally feel that I got the hang of Sumi inks quicker than I have with watercolor. That's, maybe it's just personal preference, I guess. Disclaimer as well, when I did this little bird, I was in the depths of COVID. I'm still recovering now, but I was really bored. So I wasn't brave enough to take big risks with heavier saturation, but I do think you can carefully layer on more color, a bit more. Not as much as you can with watercolor though, maybe. But again, this is the first time that I'm trying these particular inks. I'm definitely going to be using them more in the future in more videos that I'm doing, so watch out for those. Do I recommend giving these a try? Yes, I see myself using every single color that I have here. I can't wait to experiment a little bit more with different subjects, also different paper. The price isn't out of control, so grabbing a palette, it might be fun. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and stay tuned because I've got more things to share with you. Bye!